The first night without cell service felt strange, like a limb missing. I kept patting my pocket out of habit, expecting the buzz of a notification that would never come. My wife, on the other hand, was radiant in the glow of the campfire, a woman utterly at peace with the sound of the wind through the pines and the distant hum of a creek. She'd booked this digital detox weekend months ago. No reception, no screens, no interruptions. Just us, she'd said with a smile. I'd agreed, mostly to stop feeling guilty for checking work emails during dinner. I hadn't realised no interruptions meant driving 3 hours into the mountains and parking miles from the nearest power line. The spot was beautiful though. The air had that crisp, clean bite that makes your lungs feel new. Our tent sat on a soft bed of pine needles, and just beyond the ridge you could see the blue-grey layers of hills fading into mist. Still, I couldn't relax. I kept thinking about the markets opening Monday, the deal I'd left mid-negotiation, the junior associate who'd said, "Don't worry, we've got it handled," with that tremor in his voice that suggested otherwise. That night, the fire popped and hissed, sparks twisting up toward the stars. My wife leaned against me and said, "You hear that?" I listened. Just the night, the silence, the soft song of crickets. "That's what I wanted," she said. I smiled, though my mind was still in spreadsheets and boardrooms. The next morning, I woke early. The air was thick with fog, and the forest smelled of wet bark and earth. I brewed coffee over the camp stove, the steam curling like ghosts into the cold. For a while it felt right, real even. No pings, no calls, just me, the trees, and the sound of my wife stirring in the tent. Then, from somewhere in the distance, came the faint crackle of a radio. It was strange, just a flicker of static, then a man's voice, garbled and cutting in and out. I turned toward it instinctively, straining to catch the words. Something about markets, crash, emergency measures. I froze. My chest went cold. Another burst of static, then silence. I waited, holding my breath, but the voice didn't return. "Probably just a ranger channel," my wife mumbled sleepily from the tent, but I couldn't shake it. I walked up the ridge, clutching the old handheld radio we'd brought for emergencies, turning the dial until my fingers hurt. Nothing. Just the white noise of the wilderness. Somewhere out there, the world might have been collapsing, and I was stuck in the only place on Earth where no one could reach me. I told myself it was nothing. A fluke signal, some old trucker channel bouncing off the ridge, but my pulse wouldn't slow down. I walked the perimeter of camp like a sentry, radio in hand, turning the knob in slow increments. Every so often the static would shift, tease me with a blip of a voice. "Dow, limit down, unprecedented," then vanish again. I didn't need the rest. My gut already knew. Something big was happening back home. My wife crawled out of the tent, hair tangled, eyes half shut. "You look like you've seen a ghost." "Could be nothing," I said too quickly. "Heard something on the radio. Might have been about the market." She groaned, rubbing her face. "You promised. No work this weekend. That was the deal." "I know," I said, forcing a smile. If it's what I think it is, I can't." She cut me off, soft but firm. "It's one weekend, Tom. The world can survive without you." Maybe it could, but the world I lived in, the one of tickers and trades and leveraged positions, moved in seconds, not weekends. If the markets had truly crashed, my firm could be bleeding millions before breakfast, and I was here, in the woods, trying to remember how to breathe. The sun came up slow, filtering through the trees in golden streaks. It should have been beautiful, peaceful even, but my stomach was in knots. I walked up the ridge again, trying for a better signal. Nothing. I held the radio high, as if altitude could summon news out of thin air. My wife joined me after a while, her face calmer than mine. She handed me a mug of coffee and said, "You're shaking." I stared at the dark liquid. "If it's real, if the market's tanked, everything changes. My team, our accounts." She let out a long breath. "Then it'll change." "But what do you want me to do? Drive you until you find a bar of service?" I hesitated, but she could see the answer written all over my face. "Unbelievable," she muttered, setting her mug down. Fine, but you're driving. We packed up in silence. The tent came down, the fire pit doused, everything folded into the trunk with the mechanical efficiency of frustration. The forest was still, watching us, the birds chattering in ignorant joy. The dirt road twisted down the mountain in narrow switchbacks, red dust billowing behind us. Every few minutes, I'd glance at my phone. No signal, just that mocking little SOS icon. My wife kept her arms folded, staring out the window, and I could feel the wall growing between us with every mile. "Do you even hear it?" she asked finally. "What?" "The quiet. It's beautiful, Tom. You used to love quiet." I wanted to answer, but the only sound I heard was the static still echoing in my head. Markets, crash, emergency. And somewhere, deep down, I knew we were racing not just toward a signal, but away from the very thing she'd brought me here to find. We drove for nearly an hour before the trees began to thin and the horizon widened into open country. The forest gave way to meadows sprinkled with late summer wildflowers, yellow and violet against the green. Under any other circumstance, I might have admired it, the way the sunlight caught the mist lifting off the grass, but right then, all I saw was distance, and all I felt was time slipping away. My phone still read, "No service." I kept holding it up to the windshield like a divining rod, as though it might suddenly catch a whisper of signal from the world I'd left behind. My wife sat quietly, fingers tapping against her knee, her gaze lost out the window. The silence between us grew heavier than the fog. At last the road split into a rocky track that climbed another ridge. I downshifted, the tyres crunching over gravel. Halfway up, a low crackle came from the radio clipped to the dash. It startled both of us. "This morning's trading suspended," the voice said, chopped and faint. Then static swallowed it. I slammed the brakes. "What was that?" my wife asked. "Trading suspended," I muttered. "That only happens if..." I trailed off, gripping the steering wheel hard enough that my knuckles whitened. She frowned. "So, what now? We keep chasing a stronger signal?" I hesitated, staring at the tree line. A narrow trail veered off toward higher ground. "There might be reception at the lookout. It's only a mile or two up." She sighed. "You mean we're hiking again, don't you?" "I need to know," I said quietly. So we went. The sun was climbing higher, the heat thick and sticky. Each step up the trail felt like climbing out of one world and into another. Birds darted between branches. A hawk circled high overhead, a dark speck in the blue. I was sweating through my shirt, heart pounding with more than exertion. At a bend in the path, a fallen tree blocked the trail. My wife climbed over first, her face flushed. "You realise," she said between breaths, "that even if the market's melting down, there's absolutely nothing you can do about it from here." "I can call my team, I can get back online," I said. "They'll need direction." She shook her head, her voice soft now. "Or maybe they'll manage without you for one weekend." The words stung, mostly because they rang true. For years, I'd built my life around being indispensable, and now that same pride was eating me alive. When we reached the summit, the view hit like a punch. Mountains layered to the horizon, the valley below glittering with streams and ribbons of road. My wife stood beside me, her hair lifted by the wind, her expression unreadable. I raised my phone again. For a moment, just a heartbeat, the bars flickered to life. 1, 2, then gone. She looked at me, half amused, half sad. "Guess nature's not done with you yet?" I stared at that empty screen, and for the first time I wasn't sure whether I wanted those bars to come back or not. The wind on the ridge was sharp enough to make my eyes water. I stood there, holding the useless phone aloft like some kind of offering, waiting for modern civilization to acknowledge my existence. Nothing. Just a single, teasing flicker of a signal, then the emptiness of sky and static again. My wife had already spread her jacket, out on a boulder and sat watching a hawk ride the thermals. Her calm infuriated me and somehow grounded me all at once. After a few minutes, she said, "You're missing it, you know." "Missing what?" I muttered, still scanning the horizon as if a cell tower might sprout out of the forest. This, she said, sweeping her arm at the landscape. All of it will be gone soon enough, back to noise and deadlines. You might never stand in silence like this again. Her words cut through the hum in my mind. The valley stretched below us, rivers glinting like threads of silver, clouds threw slow shadows across the slopes. The air smelled of pine resin and sun-warmed rock. For a few breaths, I let myself just be. No data, no urgency, no world beyond the wind. Then the radio crackled again, faint, broken, but clear enough to twist my stomach. Massive. Losses reported. Officials urging calm. That was enough. My brief peace shattered. I turned back toward the trail. We've got to go. Maybe there's signal down in the next valley. She didn't move. Tom, please. I looked at her, frustration rising like heat. I can't just sit here. People depend on me. And what about me? She said quietly. The question hung there, heavier than any data loss or missed trade. I didn't have an answer. She stood and started walking down the trail without another word, her steps steady and sure. I followed, the silence between us deeper than the forest. The descent was steep, switchbacks carved through thick stands of fir. Every turn offered a different slice of the world. Ferns whispering in shade, trickles of water over stone, the scent of earth after sun I barely noticed. My thoughts were pounding in time with my heartbeat, all graphs and numbers and panic. At the base of the ridge, the trail widened into an old service road. We followed it until the trees began to open, revealing a stretch of scrub and gravel. Somewhere far off, I could hear what sounded like a car engine. Civilization. Finally. But my wife stopped walking. If you want to go chase your signal, she said, her voice low, go ahead. I'll wait here. I turned, startled. You're serious? She nodded. I didn't come out here to watch you race a ghost. The look in her eyes stopped me cold. For the first time all weekend, I saw how far I'd drifted, not just from her, but from the world around me. Still, I hesitated only a moment before pressing on down the road, radio clutched tight. The sound of her footsteps faded behind me, replaced by the whisper of wind through the trees and the faint, accusing crackle of static. The old service road wound downhill in lazy curves, its gravel bleached pale by the sun. I half walked, half ran, clutching the radio, eyes darting to my phone every few seconds. Nothing. The mountains around me were merciless walls of granite and green, blocking every whisper of signal. I could almost hear the world roaring beyond them, the trading floors, the breaking news, the panicked investors. And I was trapped here, in a pocket of silence. Then, just as the road rounded a bend, I caught it. The faint, far-off hum of an engine. I scrambled forward and saw a dusty pickup bumping its way up the trail. I waved both arms, shouting like a man lost at sea. The driver, a bearded man in a sun-faded ball cap, slowed and rolled down his window. You all right? He asked. Do you have a phone? Any signal? I stammered. He squinted at me. Not up here. Closest place is the old ranger station down the valley. Maybe 10 miles. Might get a bar or two if you stand on the porch. 10 miles. I exhaled, half in relief, half in despair. Can you give me a lift? Sure thing, hop in. The cab smelled of pine and gasoline. We bumped down the trail in silence for a while. I kept glancing at the ridge behind us, where my wife was somewhere unseen among the trees. Guilt crept up on me, quiet and insistent. I'd promised her a weekend away, but all I'd done was chase ghosts of responsibility. When the truck finally rolled to a stop at the ranger station, I jumped out before it even settled. The porch was sun-bleached, the wood soft underfoot. I held up my phone. 1 bar, just one. Enough to bring the world crashing back. Messages poured in, dozens, then hundreds. Missed calls, headlines, market down 20%, emergency meetings. My name mentioned in half of them. I felt a hollow pit open in my chest. I typed, called, shouted into the signal until it vanished again, leaving me staring at my reflection in the dead screen. That's when I heard the crunch of footsteps on the gravel. My wife was there, hiking pack slung over one shoulder, face flushed from the climb. She looked at me, not angry, not triumphant, just tired. "Did you find what you were looking for?" she asked. I opened my mouth. but no words came. Around us, the mountains glowed in the late afternoon light. The wind moved through the pines with a slow, steady breath. I looked down at the phone in my hand, this tiny, frantic device that ruled so much of my life, and for once, it felt absurdly small. I turned it off. The world could wait. She smiled, just faintly, and took my hand. Together we sat on the porch steps, watching the sky turn gold and the valley breathe below us. Somewhere far away, the market still burned, but here, at least for this moment, everything was perfectly still.